Yeah, I want to try to make sure we can balance out the FAs for 226 and the TA positions.
Yes. Sounds good. Welcome, everyone. I'm going to just give a few minutes for everyone to enter into our room here, and then we'll get started shortly. Welcome.
Can you hear him?
While we're waiting, can everyone put in the chat where you're tuning in from? We just like to know where everyone is located. Oh, from all over. Awesome. Jennifer, my parents met in Hartford, Connecticut. Welcome, everyone. I'm so happy to hear that there's people from everywhere.
Leslie taking the long commute from Tempe, Arizona.
I know. That's where I am right now. A few people from India too. Welcome. Is Nashua a small town or is it large?
No, it's tiny. It was we referred to it as Nausea, New Hampshire, actually, is our name for it. But it's essentially a suburb of Boston. It's 45 minutes away from Boston. So
got it. Okay.
Yeah. My dad worked in Boston. I went to school in Boston. So
cool.
Yeah. The bigger city in New Hampshire is Manchester, and the loving name for that is Manch Vegas.
Okay.
That's where there are clubs and bars and things like that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Well, let's get started.
All right, welcome everybody. My name is Mark Neviu. I'm the program head of architecture here at ASU. And Corey, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Corey Cisco. I'm a coordinator senior here at the design school, and that just means that I'm here to help you through your application process to graduation if you end up joining us. So I'm your go-to in terms of questions. So I'll hop on at the end and explain the application process and answer any questions you all have.
And I should be really clear, I'm not in a bunker somewhere deep underground. I'm in my office with really bad task lighting. So I have my light right here, but Corey's at school and it's still a beautiful evening here in Phoenix, Arizona. So I'm going to share my screen and we're going to get into the presentation.
And one thing I'll mention is if you do have questions, put them in the Q&A portion for us. We will get to those at the end. We'll have a good amount of time for question and answer portion.
All right, can everybody see that, Corey?
Yep, looks good.
Great, I'm going to mute my video. All right, so welcome everybody. As I said, my name is Mark Neviu. I'm the head of architecture. I'm joined tonight by Corey Cisco. Corey can answer everything you need to know about the admissions process. I'm here to help with the actual process. Corey is going to be an enormous help for all of you. She's an amazing person. She's a great coordinator. And so any questions you have about the process of getting into ASU, she can help you with. So do not be shy. She's a great colleague. I want to be harder. ASU is a comprehensive research university measured not by whom it excludes, but whom it includes and how they succeed. That's a really important moment or comment for or I should say part of the charter. We've recently redesigned the entire graduate program. And the real sort of northern star of the redesign was trying to imagine how we might align better with the charter of the university. So we want to be radically inclusive and we want to have impact. So what I'll talk a little bit about when I talk about the new curriculum is really how we've tried to do that. But it's a really important thing about being at ASU. ASU is not like any other university I've been at. It's massive, it's impactful, it's inclusive, it's really, really exciting place to be. So it's a super interesting place and it's a really great moment to be here. My own quick story is that I went to school in Boston, I graduated. I then went back to grad school, I started teaching, and then went back to do a PhD. Then started teaching full time and worked in various places, Canada, Los Angeles, Boston. And about 3 years ago, I moved with my family to the Valley. And what has been really amazing for me is that the people in the Valley, the architects in the Valley, have incredible community. And I'm showing you a few people that I've got to know. Martha Abbott is the principal at Gensler, which is the world's largest design and construction firm. Lorenzo Perez, who's a native Phoenician, went to ASU and is now a developer, a builder, and an architect. Steve Jordan, also a native Phoenician, played football in the NFL for a number of years and is now working at a VP level at Ryan Companies, which is a architecture, development, and construction office here in town. There's a lot of different ways of being architects. And one of the things I really appreciated in the Valley and Phoenix is that not only are there really, really wonderful people, but there's a lot of different ways of being architecture or being an architect. And we've really tried to embrace that here at ASU. So maybe in future presentations, I'll have your name listed as well. We have a great group of faculty at ASU, theoreticians, practitioners, historians, a whole bunch of different folks. Felipe Mesa on the upper left, practicing architect in Medellin, Colombia, recently hired him. We have a number of really great people. In addition to these full-time faculty, we also have an amazing community of faculty associates, and those are people who are working full-time who teach 1 or 2 classes for us per semester. So it's a really great, vibrant faculty to be a part of. And one of the nice things about our program at ASU is that even though ASU is massive, you really get to know your faculty and you really get to know them as colleagues, as mentors. And it's a pretty great sort of community to come into. So a little bit about the programs. We have an undergraduate degree, a Bachelor of Science in Design. That program is basically open to anybody. It's a non-professional degree. Then we have a 2-year professional degree, which is a degree that allows you to sit for licensure. And we have a 1-year non-professional degree, which is a kind of research-based degree. So the program was conceived as what's known as a 4+2. So it's typical that you would take a 4-year degree here and then continue on for your two-year degree. If you're coming from another university where you had architecture as in your background, then you would apply for the 2-year degree. If you don't have architecture in your background, we have a 3-year track, which is essentially one kind of beginning year, and then you continue on to the 2-year degree. It's a 3-year total degree, but it's the same professional M.Arch. I'm going to walk through the curriculum now to try to better explain how it works. So as I said, if you're applying to the program and you have no architectural background, you would apply to the 3-year degree. In that first year, in the fall, you would take a studio. In the spring, you would take a studio. And then you have 2 courses each semester, a visualization course and a tech course in the fall semester, history, and then technology in the second semester. In the second year of the 3-year degree, you would join the 2-year students. So if you're coming to us with a background in architecture or allied degree, you would enter into the Studio 3 in the fall and Studio 4 in the spring. Again, there are 2 courses aligned with those studios: visualization, history, theory, and tech. And then in your final year, you would take 2 studios, a research course, a practice course, and then a theory and your final tech course. So that comprises the entire curriculum. Now, we've redesigned the curriculum in a way that we want to support students to take other things. So architecture plus something else, architecture plus construction, architecture plus real estate, architecture plus sustainability. Or if you need to work, we've scheduled the courses on Monday and Wednesday. So the seminar lecture classes are on Monday morning, Wednesday morning. The studios are on Monday and Wednesday afternoon. And so that allows you to have Tuesday, Thursday, Friday open. If you need to work, if you want to take a dual degree, if you want to take another credential, all of that is available to you. And, really we want students to leverage what is ASU. And ASU is a massive, massive enterprise. Lots of students who have been trying to do this, trying to take multiple degrees, but also practice has changed. Practice is not the same as it was when I graduated in 1995. Practice is very different. And so we really need to better prepare our students to enter into a practice, into the profession in a way that has really changed in the last 20 years. And as I said, we've also made this change because our students are doing this. Nikki graduated last year with a degree in construction management and architecture. Abdullah graduated with a degree in architecture plus sustainability. This is a shading structure study that he did for downtown Phoenix. Selena graduated with an architecture degree plus a community solutions degree, which was in the Watts School of Public Service. Nate graduated with a degree in architecture plus biomimicry. Paul graduated with an architecture degree plus business administration. He's now working in Los Angeles at Gensler. Holly Chilikas graduated with an architecture degree plus real estate development. And Holly is interesting because even though she has an architecture and real estate development degree, she now works for a construction management office who was interested in expanding from construction management into development. And she has a background in both architecture and development. So she was able to really sort of fill a niche there. Namitha graduated about 4 years ago and is working now in Boston. Her architecture plus urban design degree is helping her to design campuses at Perkins and Will. When you're here, we very much encourage you to get involved, and we have some really great student organizations. NOMA, which is the National Organization of Minority Architects, has a great presence here in the Valley and across the state. We have a very strong American Institute of Architecture students group. Next week, actually, they're going on a tour of 5 buildings that are being constructed by ASU right now. And we also have a group called LASSO, which is the Latinx Architecture Student Organization. ASU is a place that's very, very big, and we try to really connect students when they get here, because it's really important to kind of build that community. And we've definitely learned over the past half coming back from COVID, how important kind of that community really is to the success of our students. So I often get asked what happens after I graduate. So as I mentioned, our 2-year degree is the professional degree that allows you to sit for licensure in the United States, along with some experience hours and taking your exams to become an architect. But we really want to help you succeed while you're in school. So we have a series of studio nights where we pair local practices with students. We help place you in internships. And I have to say, one of the nice things about being in Phoenix is that ASU is the big school. And every office I've walked into, there are graduates from ASU. And so, Todd and Associates, which is a local office that does a lot of healthcare, a lot of housing. Gary Todd is a graduate from 77, and you can go through every decade, and there's someone there who's working right now who went to ASU. So it's a very, very good community to enter into. If you don't want to stay in Phoenix, excuse me, we have great connections with places like LA, New York, Chicago, but we really want to help you succeed, and we really want to help you. We really want to set you up for success while you're here. All right, Corey, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Yes, so outside of the Master of Architecture program, we do have other graduate programs available. So we do have the Master of Architecture, which has the 3 and 2 year pathways. It's important to note that it is also a STEM program, which does come with a lot of benefits. The Master of Interior Architecture has a 3+ and then a 2 year pathway. The Master of Industrial Design, similar, has a 3+ and 2 year pathway. Master of Landscape Architecture, which also has a 2+ pathway in addition to a 3 and 2 year pathway. The Master of Science and Innovation and Venture Development. This is a partnership between Herberger Institute, W.P. Carey School of Business, and then the Fulton Schools of Engineering. It is a 1-year program and it is also STEM. The Master of Urban Design is also a 1-year program that we have available. And the Master of Visual Communication Design has a 3+ and 2 year pathway. Our research-based programs is the Master of Science and Architecture, which is also STEM. We have a Master of Science and Design with various concentrations. And then now we also have a PhD in Design, Environment, and the Arts.
I might also add that it's not out of the question. It's actually something that students have done to take both a Master of Architecture and a degree in landscape or a degree in interiors. That happens as well.
Yes. So the application process, it's 2 parts. The first part is the ASU Graduate College application. So this is ASU's main application that you will apply to. This is how we will admit you into a program. You will need to submit an application. One thing that I will note is submit your unofficial transcripts while you are applying. If you are admitted, then you can submit your official transcripts. It will just save you money in terms of the initial step. And then for international students, the English proficiency exam is required. The second part of the application is really where the admission committee is going to be looking at. So an electronic portfolio is required, a statement of purpose, and then 2 names and email addresses of your recommenders. So we are currently accepting applications. Our priority deadline is January 15th, and the priority deadline means that we will be making some funding decisions at that point, but we will have rolling admissions of the 15th of every month until June. This is Christy and I, so my colleague Christy Brown, she's another graduate coordinator on our team. This is our contact information. However, what I would recommend is emailing designgrad@asu.edu. Both of us have access to this email, and it's just the quickest way to get a response if one of us is out of the office. And then if you are local or once you join us, we are located in the College of Design North Building, room 102.
And that's where Corey is right now.
Yes, I am. And then like and follow us on social media. We have all the various platforms. However, I would say Instagram is where we are most active. So go ahead and give us a follow if you're interested in events or student projects that we have going on right now. A lot of interesting things happening this semester. So
we got to get a TikTok site, Corey.
Don't volunteer to run it.
I think Kalani should do it.
Yeah, that's
all right. I'm gonna stop sharing. Now's the moment where we could open up the floor for some questions and do video. So we can ask questions in the Q&A, or we can ask questions in the chat, whatever is easiest for you.
We will monitor both. How many graduate students are there currently? Do you have the updated number, including online students, Mark?
I don't. So I should also add, one thing I didn't mention is that we have an online degree, online master's. This year we accepted about 45 students into the graduate degree online. We have, let me do the math real quick. We have around 200 graduate students.
I was going to say around 200 too.
Online and in person. Our online degree is pretty, personally I find it kind of fascinating because it's exactly mirrors our on-ground degree, but it's online. It's totally, completely asynchronous. So you can take it from anywhere in the world. Our full-time faculty are teaching in it as well. Not like we have a second class faculty teaching it. And it's a really, really interesting new thing. The faculty to student ratio depends on the course. So our studios are about 15 or so students. Lecture courses are typically your entire cohort. So if you have 45 students in the cohort, that's what your lecture class would be. We do have one thing that I should say I was pleasantly surprised by when I arrived, is that all of our advising is handled by advisors. So Corey works with you, Christy works with you. It's not like faculty have to do advising as well. So we have really, really good support, I would say, in terms of advising. So if you want to do something, like you want to do a degree in neuroscience and architecture, like we'll figure it out, and if you're interested in healthcare, like we can figure that out, so those sorts of things are really, really helpful. In terms of the portfolio, the 3-year portfolio is a good question. It's not super, we're not super critical around that, because we recognize people are coming from another degree. Tell us your story. That's what we're interested in. And I was not here when this happened, but I guess prior to my arrival, somebody produced a portfolio that was basically the architecture of sushi. The person was a sushi chef, and that was great. Like they kind of told their story. They tried to make it architectural in some way, and it was really kind of fantastic. So in those 3-year portfolios, we're really looking for your story. So give us that. We do not, I'm just following the chat. I think we have some questions too that I'll get to in a moment, but we do not actually require a GRE. There's a lot of research that demonstrates that GREs and other standardized tests don't really predict student success as much as are indicators of family demographic. So we do not require those.
And I'll jump in and do some Q&A questions. So is there a better chance of getting into the program if you apply by priority? Earlier the better. That's not necessarily true. The priority deadline really is about funding. So the admission committee will do a big bulk review in terms of making sure of who they want to offer maybe a recruitment scholarship to, or maybe a TA position. If you apply earlier, that means you get your decision sooner in terms of the admission. But then after January 15th is when we'll start sending out funding offer letters and that sort of thing. So that's really what that priority deadline is for. And then if admitted to the in-person program, if I were to decide I would like to go into the online program, would I be able to? So yes, we can transition you from the in-person to online. I would suggest not doing that multiple times during the program, but we could do that. It couldn't be in the middle of the semester, but it could be at the beginning or end. So we were able to make that adjustment. And then what are the steps to becoming a TA and the benefits? So I'm doing TA assignments right now, so I feel like I get 20 emails a day about TAs. But so the TA process is you may get offered a TA position in your offer letter, or you will apply to the TA application and you will be assigned according to where you fit in, your skill sets, etc. We try and make sure that students get at least 1 or 2 TA positions if you have applied and are interested in the program. There are some other opportunities to maybe be a faculty associate as well that we've recently added, and then some greater positions too. The benefits to being a TA is a tuition reduction. So depending on what your residency status is, that might influence your tuition. And then there's also a stipend for the semester you are a TA. Happy to go into that more once we send out the offers, but that's in summary what the benefits look like. And I'll be sending out all this information in terms of the TA application if you apply and whatnot. So you get all that information too.
There's a question about sustainability courses. We have an entire school of sustainability. So we don't 15 years ago, architecture and sustainability were 2 sort of ideas, right? We actually teach sustainability in our studios. It's not separate. It's just the way of working. So, we have a pretty major crisis in front of us. And so to sort of separate those 2 things is not really productive. And so that is a part of our studios, but specific courses can be taken and specific credentials, degree, certificate, et cetera, can be had in the School of Sustainability. So if that's of interest to you, I would actually think about pairing those two things out. One question is about what would you say sets ASU's program apart from other schools? I don't want to make this sound like a sort of not answering the question, but I think most professional architecture programs have to do certain things, right? We have to be accredited, so we have to follow the NAB criteria. But one of the things we've done is we've streamlined the program so that you're not taking only architecture classes. We've actually given you the opportunity to take architecture plus something else. That's the first thing. And the second thing is that the wealth and the sort of variety and the depth of courses around ASU is unparalleled. I mean, it doesn't we're doing things that no other university is. It's the largest public university in the United States. We have 135,000 students. There's research that's happening. I'll give you a quick example. Our fifth year students in the spring are going to be doing a studio called Embassy 2050. And it's part of a research initiative by the OBO, which is the Bureau of Overseas Building Operations. This is the group in the State Department that manages the entire portfolio of all the buildings outside of the US for the government. And that research project is something that's happening across scales at all these different programs in the university. And we're involved in that. And our kind of part of that is to run a studio. So our students are going to be part of this $1 million+ grant to work on this project that actually has real effect, has real impact. So that kind of stuff doesn't happen. Like the State Department isn't reaching out to many schools to do this. We're one of the few, there are 4 schools doing it in the US. So there are opportunities like that I think really sort of separates us. The other thing I'll say is that we have just incredible the students and the faculty, the relationship mix is really fantastic. It's the biggest small city I've ever lived in. It's a really great place to be. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity for our students to thrive here. So I'll stop there, but I could keep going. Let me answer some more questions. So I hope that answers.
A question about English proficiency. So I linked the page where it outlines all the requirements, but it's only a requirement for international students, so not for domestic. And then there's a longer question about the admission committee, Mark, if you want to look at that one.
Yeah, so what does the admission committee look for in a portfolio? I have a B.Arch, 7-month internship, working since December. So what we look for in a portfolio, one is it needs to be sort of clear, consistent. We want to see what skills you have. We want to know what you did. Okay, so if you worked for Zaha Hadid and you put in the tower that they just built in China, like great, but what did you do on that project? Like, I know the project, it's a fantastic building, but I want to know what you did on it. And so really being clear about your role and what you've done is really important. And kind of separating academic work from professional work, that's all good, but we need to really know what you've done. All right, so try not to show other people's work. We've had a few instances where the same drawings appear in multiple portfolios, and it's a bit of a red flag, but it happens because people worked in a big office and they just used the marketing materials. So we don't care about that so much. We want to know what you did.
And then there's just a few questions about concurrent degrees, and I'll just kind of answer all of them at once. So if you want to do architecture plus something else, would you need to apply to that program separately? And then another question is about specializations required in the M.Arch plus. So if you are interested in doing a concurrent degree, a concurrent certificate, yes, you do need to apply separately to that program. That also stands for doing a concurrent degree within the design school. So for instance, if you do an M.Arch plus like the Master of Landscape Architecture, you still need to apply because we need to be able to admit you into that program through ASU. So that is a requirement. If it's something outside of the design school, we mostly see construction management, the certificate in sustainability, or the master's degree in sustainability. I know those advisors very well and I can connect you with them. So if that's something of interest, or if it's something different, we'll be able to connect you with an advisor so you can speak to them about those specific requirements. And then if you are admitted, I will work with that advisor. Oftentimes we'll all meet together to discuss what the outline should be and whatnot, just to make sure you're meeting all of the requirements. So hopefully that answers your question. And then there's one more question about, is there a chance to get a fee waiver? So there is a chance to get a tuition reduction through a TA position. That's really the only way to get a fee waiver though. If you're talking about an application fee waiver, we're not offering that at this time. However, we might offer that in the future. So just check back in if that's what you're asking about. But if it's for tuition, it's really only through the TA positions that there is a tuition reduction. Is that all the questions? I think so. Does ASU participate in the Western Regional Graduate Program? We do. So our program is, you are eligible to receive a reduced tuition through that program if you're a resident within an eligible state.
So any other questions or comments even? Happy to answer them. I'm going to type my email in the chat. If you have any questions about anything that we've talked about, I'm happy to respond. So feel free to reach out. There's a tuition question Q&A.
So yes, the tuition is slightly different between the two. So I will follow up with a recording of this webinar and I'll include those links so you can look at everything and do some comparisons.
So there's a calculator that you can use that actually, because we have so many different types of students and, Western region, in-state, graduate, undergraduate, all this, so many different types of students. There's actually a website that ASU provides information on everything. So you can actually figure out exactly what your profile is and sort of get that, you figure that out.
And I just put the link in the chat so you can look at that too.
And if you have questions about that, let us know. I from my own personal experience, I think specifically with grad school, you really got to know what the cost is and you got to know what you're getting into. It's a huge investment and we want to make sure that it's worth it for you. So we don't want to, obfuscate exactly what the costs are. So we can help work with you on that, but it's a really big deal. So Kyle, the question of what kind of projects do graduate students work on in studio? So one of the things I didn't mention in the quick description of the curriculum is that our 5th and 6th year studios, so the last 2 years of the program or the 2-year program, those studios are vertical. And what that means is that 5th and 6th year students work together. There's really not that much of a difference actually between them. And the studios are based on topics. And so the topics are, they range from maybe more theoretical projects like metaphor to very real projects like a embassy 2050. What is an embassy going to be in 2050 in difficult, extreme environments, right? Those are very practical things. We've run a studio at Roden Crater, which we'll continue to do. So you actually get to visit Roden Crater, and it's not open to everybody, but there's a studio that we run. But the topics vary. And a colleague of ours, Phil Horton, who's the associate director for strategic initiatives in the design school, who's in architecture, talks a lot about how we're a very pluralistic program. We're big. We're a very, very large program. We have 1,000 students. And because of that, we don't have like one thing we do. So there are a number of schools in the US that kind of produce, they definitely produce graduates that do kind of one thing really well. We don't do that. We try to meet students where they're at, sort of have a conversation. And the idea is that you are in control of your education. And so if you want to work full-time, or I should say part-time, don't work full-time, that might be too much. But if you want to work while you're in school, you can do that. If you want to take another degree, you can do that. If you want to take a theoretical studio, you can do that. If you want to take a really practical studio, you can do that. And so the topics vary, and they will vary. They will continue to vary. We have a pretty interesting model emerging where firms actually are running studios. So rather than having one professor, you have the entire firm. And so we've done this with a number of different groups. School Devons, it's a local office. This year, last 2 years, they've run projects based on architecture schools. This year, they're running a project. The studio will do a justice center on a reservation, which has incredible implications, right? What is justice? Big question. What is justice on a reservation? Big question. What is the justice center on a reservation? And it's a real project that the studio is doing in studio, but the firm is also doing as a real project. So it's a really kind of interesting mix of things that are happening. So big range, pluralist society here. We accept a lot of voices. We encourage a lot of voices, I should say.
And we also have a very diverse student body as well, which is really awesome.
So the studios are not given randomly, they're given a lottery. So what we've been doing in the past couple of years that we're going to continue forward is that in December, you get a series of videos about studio options, and then you choose. And it happens that you get your first or second choice. And then in early August, we send out videos as well. Same thing, you choose your studio, and we try to match you up. Typically, there's the studios are 2 days a week from 1 to 6, Monday and Wednesday. So that's the time you'll actually be in the studio. I like these, Corey, I don't know how you feel about this, but the questions are always kind of like big questions, super specific questions. You know, it's always good. Anyway, so any question is a good one. So keep them coming. Is there studio culture? It's a good question. When I was in school back in the last century, I had to be in studio because that's where my May line was. And a May line, probably no one knows what that is, but it was basically this T-square that moved up and down my board. And making occurred in studio. I couldn't do it in my apartment. Students now can work anywhere. Students are working. Students have families. Students have like stuff going on, you know? And so the conversation we've had around studio culture is that we actually need to design that in the studio. It's not there by default. So when I was in school, it just happened. So what we've been doing in our studios is really trying to figure out, like, how do you design studio culture? And one way we do that is really to think about how peer-to-peer interaction happens. And so rather than having a desk crit every 20 minutes for 15 students for an afternoon, we're really experimenting with other ways of teaching so that you don't simply have a one-on-one conversation with one person, but we bring in experts into the studios. We have students talking to each other more. We really try to develop that community, which is really, really important to us. So that becomes studio culture. So we've been, over the past few years, specifically with COVID, asking like, oh my gosh, like how do we create studio culture when everyone's on Zoom, And those lessons have really transferred into post-COVID. And I would even say we're not post-COVID yet. We're still pretty much in it, as this call suggests. But I think we've learned a lot, and the studio culture it's been something that we've really had to think about how to design rather than have it sort of exist by default. That's a good question.
Yeah, that's a good question. I like that question a lot. You see that question come in, Mark?
What programs do you do? I'm not sure the first part of that question is, but as graduate students, you all have your own desks. We have a very large program, as I said, about 1,000 students. And we have what are known as hot desks. Those are desks that multiple students use. And then we have what's known as cold desks, which is your own desk. And all of our graduate students have cold desks, so you'll have your own spot in the studio.
And I think it's referring to software.
And one of the nice things is that good, thank you. Okay, so thank you for translating. It's been a long day. The software that we typically use, it changes. I'll be honest with you. So right now, Rhino, Revit, AutoCAD is kind of fading away, but BIM is a pretty advanced technology for studio sometimes. Rhino is more intuitive, but might not actually be as technical for some studios. The Adobe suite, obviously, you need to use that. What we try to do in our 2 representation courses is give students an array of different experiences. So if you come in and you have a ton of Revit, we can give you a bunch of Rhino, or if you have a ton of Rhino, you don't know any BIM, we'll give you a bunch of Revit courses. But those are typically what's being used. There is a couple of offices in town that use ArchiCAD, which for me is very unusual. I don't know anyone who used it, but it does happen here in Phoenix. And so we actually have some ArchiCAD training as well. So Jennifer, I hope that answered your question.
Any other questions before we wrap up?
And at least it got dark where you are, Corey, because now I don't feel so bad.
Yeah.
In a cave. That's right. So do graduate and undergraduate students interact? Yes, they do, mostly in the studio, but also in organizations and things like that. We have a number of positions where TAs are teaching in the first and second year, studios mostly, but large courses as well. So there's a lot of interaction there. It's a really productive space of interaction. Our first year, or I should say our undergraduate program, is totally different. And we have a 300-person studio taught by 3 faculty and a core of TAs. And so those TAs are really the front line with all those students, and they've been fantastic. And so there's that's a kind of built-in mentoring system that we've tried to develop, that we don't sort of call mentoring, but that's really what it is. And so there's a lot of interaction there. In terms of sort of making stuff, we have a full metal shop, we have a full wood shop, we have digital fabrication, that's all in one workshop. And then we have a series of laser cutters, 3D printers, and 3D printers that range from like the $200 plastic to powder. So we have a big range. Keep in mind the design school has an industrial design program, and those folks are really focused on making one-to-one prototypes, whereas our students are typically focused on making models. So we have machines and we have technology to really support one-on-one or one-to-one prototyping, which helps our students. Good question, though. Anything else I can answer or we could talk about, or any questions you might have? Corey, what do you think?
I mean, I think we got this down now. Got enough of them together. I always enjoy the webinars though, just because all the different questions, specifically this session, were very good. So thank you for attending, and we appreciate the interest, and please let us know if there are any questions that we didn't answer tonight. Thanks to everyone that tuned in.
And I just want to say thank you again. My name is Mark Neviu. I'm the program head of architecture, and it's an amazing moment to be in the program. And so I sort of welcome you all. If you have any questions or you just want to talk more about the program, just shoot me an email. I'm always happy to chat, talk by phone or talk by Zoom, whatever works for you all. So thank you so much. Corey, again, always thank you. Go home, it's late.
Yep. Bye, everyone.
Have a great night, everybody.